So now it's 7:15. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's seminars. This is the Business Beyond Usual seminar series. Well, you don't necessarily need to know who I am, but I also introduce myself. My name is Raymond, actually, from the Institute for Entrepreneurship of the PolyU. We normally organize different events, entrepreneurship events. So this one, Business Beyond Usual series, is actually a series we work together with Richard starting last year. And tonight's workshops is actually the fourth one. So in the last 3 times, we have fabulous workshops with the speakers and the audience. So that's why we continue this series now and in the future. So what's the gist behind Business Beyond Usual series? Actually, as the name suggested, when we talk about business, it's always like profit maximizations, dollars, value, things like that. But we want to, everybody think about that. How about like business to embrace sustainability, to business that can, be more environmental friendly, can make our environment better for us and for our next generation. So each time, with the help from Richard, we invite a lot of fabulous speakers from the town and overseas. So tonight is the same. We have 3 speakers. Alex, Alexandro, and Robin, who will share with us their own stories, experience in how to make business beyond usual. And tonight's actually, the MC is not me, it's actually Richard. So I pass the stage to Richard to continue the show, okay?
Can everyone hear me in back? Can I do that? Okay. So I feel like I was punching Raymond. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Very quickly, I'm going to move as fast as I can through my materials so we can get the speakers up and then get to the Q&A. My name is Richard Baker. I'm based in Shanghai, and I am a professor of sustainability at the Chinese International Business School, as well as the founder of Collective Responsibility. Tonight's series is actually the 9th this week. We were in Shanghai last Thursday, Singapore Tuesday, and now here tonight, basically having the same conversation with the idea that sustainability is global and not necessarily just global. It's not just about climate change, not just about how the world is called with polar bears. It's about local issues and having local discussions. And so in each city, we're really trying to. So we're just trying to have.
Your voice is asymmetrical when you turn. I can't hear it.
Okay. Is that better? Okay. So what we're really trying to do is just have local conversations. And then we'll tie those conversations back to the Asia region, back to the global perspective. So the idea is that to solve problems that we face, no matter if it's environmental, social, or economic, you have to have a process of where it's about awareness first, what's the problem? Engagement, I or my organization wants to do something. Capacity, how I do something. And then scale, action. And what we're trying to do through these 3 cities is basically just start those conversations. All of the panelists who will be speaking tonight will be talking about issues that they see, process, the business case, and what they've kind of achieved so far. And we have very different speakers. Tonight we have Alessandro, who will be talking about green buildings and the work he's doing with LEED. We have Alex and Dinesh, who will be speaking about real estate, but also from a social perspective, working with underperforming assets to build community. And then we have Robin, who will be talking about her work to basically create a channel for food waste to make it to those who need it, or wasted food from us into those who need it. And so it's really, for me, all 3 are limits to growth, or addressing limits to growth. How do we build cities? How do we manage resources? How do we build communities overall as a limit to growth? And so this is kind of the fundamental chart that I've been kind of working with that comes from the book, The Limits of Growth, which is essentially in the middle at 2030. If we don't really start taking action things start to get a little bit crazy. It starts to look like the Tokyo Metro Zone. And so what I'm trying to do is actually engage each of you into your own conversation. Think about issues that you think are important, find a model that works for you, and hopefully take a step forward. So, this was kind of on CNBC's homepage yesterday. 17 years until the earth is tapped dry of water. Really think about the issues that are important to you is what we want to hammer out tonight. And so through the three speakers tonight, we'll talk about three different issues, but all of them related to limits of growth. So without spending any more airtime or absorbing any more oxygen, I'd really like to bring up Alessandro, who will talk about his work, as an architect and now as someone who's helping firms get LEED certification to talk about, green buildings and, the impact of a green building. So, Alessandro, thank you. There's your wand, and here's that's forward.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. So my presentation tonight is going to start to kind of set the scene about what I see in China. Most of my work is based here in Hong Kong and Taiwan, Singapore, and China. Personally, I am an economist working in an engineering company, and I started about 3 years ago. So I have a pretty interesting viewpoint in terms of what is effective and what is not effective from a cost point of view as well in terms of sustainability. But before we get to that, let's look at the problem. So what are we facing right now? And the way that I like to pose this question is always by this number, this mysterious number, 600 million. Now, can anybody guess what 600 million could be? Can anybody take a guess? What would be a good representation of 600 million? It's a good guess. 600 million is the population of North America, Mexico, France, Spain, and Italy together. It is also the number of people that are going to be moving from rural areas to urban areas in China between now and 2050. And 250 million of those, and maybe more, will be moving within the next 10 years. So what's happening? How is China coping with this situation? This picture was taken from my old apartment in Shanghai, actually. This is looking out into southern Huangpu district. And we see that this is a fairly typical neighborhood development in major cities in Shanghai and all throughout China. And while it doesn't maybe look much from up here, when you go down, there's very strong social networks. There's people that have been living there their entire lives. People that are really subsiding off of very, very little. This family that I found was actually living off of collected garbage, and they were living in a tent in the middle of the pile that they sorted through every single day. But development is coming. Development is coming very fast because all those people that are moving need housing. So let's see what happens just over the course of 1 year to this neighborhood. This picture was taken in August of 2009. This is the same house in November. This is taken from bird's eye view in December, January, March, and then finally April. Completely destroyed, completely set out. And now actually the entire neighborhood is completely gone if you go there now. Social networks destroyed, and what's taking its place is something like this. This is the skyline of Pudong. Now, I guess you could argue that this is a horrible case or this is a great case, depending on if you like tall buildings. But it doesn't always work out this way. Sometimes you get this. This is the famous building that literally toppled over in Minhang a few years ago. And this is the response that we are having to do because of all these people that are moving in. We're constructing quickly, and we're constructing inefficient buildings, we're constructing toxic buildings just to be able to house these people. This is also a very funny picture. I don't know if you've been reading the news, but this is the professor in Beijing that built a villa on top of a building. I don't know if this is a representation of how crowded we're getting, but. So then obviously it's having an impact on our environment. So our drinking water is being affected. Air pollution, we've been seeing what's going on in Beijing recently. It's getting increasingly worse. But there's also a lot of societal issues that are not so apparent as air pollution. We're seeing increases in obesity because of a decrease in a more active lifestyle. And we have heart disease and stroke, which are now a very leading cause of death in China, which has never been before. Here in Hong Kong, we're seeing decreases in happiness and also the willingness of young couples to actually have children. So this quote, I think, summarizes really what I'm trying to say, is that if we do want to construct and to house all these people, of course we can. There's no problem. We can definitely house all these people. But we're going to have cities with no food and no energy and no way to survive in a sustainable manner. So we have to do something. We have to think about a paradigm shift. We have to think about a new way of doing things. And this is where sustainability comes to the rescue. Now, I'm sure everybody has seen the triple bottom line Venn diagram on the left about the establishment of society, economy, and the environment working together to create a sustainable future. But I would actually like to propose a different way to look at this Venn diagram, which is more along here. Just not showing anything. Because if you look at the traditional Venn diagram, it's almost implying that the economy or that the society could live without the environment, which is just not true. It's impossible. So whenever we think about sustainability, whenever we think about green buildings or food or waste, we always have to think about it in terms of the greater environment and to think about that the environment encompasses everything. What I do specifically is I look individually at how buildings impact this greater aspect of sustainability. And the work that I do specializes in green building certifications. Now, green building certifications represent a small margin of the greater construction that goes on in China and all over the world. But it's increasing, and it's setting a standard for basic construction in Hong Kong, in China, and all over the world. And there's two basic principles that I want to highlight about green building certifications. The first is about life cycle costs. So if you think about a building construction cost from your contractor, it's really kind of like the tip of the iceberg. What he's showing you in terms of your materials costs doesn't take into account all of the costs of extracting that material, transporting that material, the cost of operation of that material, and then at the end of life, the disposal of that material. That is what we call life cycle costs. So green building certifications like LEED, which is international, and Hong Kong BEAM, which is local, try to reduce these life cycle costs of buildings to make them more efficient over their entire life. Another concept that they try to do is they say that it's unfair for a consumer like you to have the right to walk into any supermarket and decide what product you want to buy based on the amount of fat and cholesterol and sodium. You have the knowledge at your fingertips to make that decision. But we, as people who operate and live and play inside buildings, don't have that same knowledge available to us to make the decisions in where we want to live and work and so forth. So the LEED system tries to take a concept as simple as this and turn it into something like this. A method in which you can easily benchmark and compare one building against the next, and to know exactly what is going into that building in terms of materials, in terms of energy consumption, water consumption, and so forth. It's diversified very much throughout the years. LEED is about 20 years old now, and it's gone through a lot of variations. It's becoming more intensive in terms of achieving the certification. And it's looking at all the way from the design, how you initiate the thinking about sustainable design for a building, all the way through to operations, and then eventually to your end of life. Again, highlighting that life cycle approach. In terms of statistics, LEED has really exploded throughout the world. We're seeing hundreds of millions of square meters of certified space, over 50 countries that are participating in the LEED program. And not surprisingly, China is the third on the list in terms of most applied projects to date. If we're looking at in the world, not including North America, East Asia is representing the highest growth. We see a very high spike in what happened in the Middle East, which is that spike there, and then with the market crash, everything has fallen over. But we do see a rise in certifications that is happening again. Here in East Asia, China for sure represents the largest portion of green buildings, for sure. And with 1,200 right now that are either undergoing certification or have been certified. Looking in specifically, we see Hong Kong is second on the list. And then within China, the larger cities are the ones that are attempting certification the most. Looking specifically in Hong Kong, we see that the majority of certifications that are taking place are what's called CI, so commercial interior certifications. And this is not surprising because a lot of new construction here happens more in terms of internal commercial fit-outs rather than new constructions. But we do see a rise in existing building certification. So looking at how buildings are operating and how we can make them operate even better. So one of the main reasons why LEED has taken off so much and why Hong Kong Beam is taking off so much is because there's economic value to it. It's decreasing your operating cost of your building. It's improving the efficiency of your building. It's improving the value of your building. We're seeing significant increases in building value, increases in rent, and also your cost of doing certifications is lowering. It used to be that in the 1990s and the early 2000s, LEED was expensive to do. It took a lot of effort from a developer. Now within 3 to 5 years, you're getting a payback from those energy efficiencies, those productivity efficiencies that you're getting from your users. So this is a really huge market drive that we're seeing in this region as well. The main concepts that LEED tries to look at are the site. So how do the users interact with the site? Is the building well positioned? Is it connected to alternative transportation? Is it off-gassing a lot of emissions and pollutions during the construction phase? How is it doing in terms of water efficiency, energy efficiency? What about the materials that are being put into the building? Are they efficient? Do they have a short life cycle? And then looking at indoor environmental quality in terms of ergonomics and also VOCs and health and well-being. The rating scale for BEAM and for LEED is very similar. The first level of certification is certified in LEED and bronze in Hong Kong BEAM. And then we see silver, gold, and platinum. You have certain prerequisites that you have to achieve for any project that wants to certify. And then after that, you have optional credits. The more optional credits you get, the more points you get, and then finally the higher certification that you're able to achieve. Some of the ideas and concepts that LEED tries to push, the first is in terms of waste and pollution reduction. This is a project that we're doing in Chufu in China. This is a Shangri-La hotel. And when we got to the site was in pretty bad shape. Not only was the surrounding neighborhood completely covered by dust, but the local residents were complaining that there was sediment in their water table. So one of the very simple things that we did, first and foremost, is train the contractor. We trained them in very simple practices like covering exposed dirt, water filtration, cleaning vehicles and cleaning the site, but also looking at what's going on in the materials that are happening on the site. There's a lot of waste that is generated from construction waste. So